And they contrast the different systems. And Fath Ali Shah says to this official, Sir John Malcolm, he says, it sounds to me as if your monarch is simply the first magistrate. He doesn't really have much power.
You write at one point in the introduction essay to that book, you say Iran's written constitution introduced modern concepts of citizenship and political rights to Iranian politics. Okay.
Yeah.
So I look at that and go, wait, what was the thinking around citizenship and rights before this? I mean, what if this was being introduced, what was citizenship before it was introduced?
Well, basically, prior to that, you see the ideas, and there are a number of interesting discussions between, as far where my work lies, really between British and Iranian officials in the early 19th century and others, and they talk about that. They talk about the different nature of their political systems, and the Iranian political system is basically an authoritarian system based around the monarch, and the monarch has his subjects. I mean, you have to look at it in terms of the monarch and his subjects, and the monarch has, theoretically at least, absolute control. Okay, an absolute authority. Now, these are obviously delimited in some ways, either by religion and also the ability to do things. But there's no sort of constitutional, legal, or other sort of control on the monarch's power. And there's a very famous scene recounted by a British official. This is, in the early 19th century, when he talks to Fath Ali Shah, who's the second Qajar monarch, and they contrast the different systems. And Fath Ali Shah says to this official, Sir John Malcolm, he says, it sounds to me as if your monarch is simply the first magistrate. He doesn't really have much power. He can't really do much. He's subject to the law.
Hang on a second. Are you saying that the concept of citizenship then, pre-constitution, would be you're not necessarily the citizen of a country, you're the subject of a monarch?
Yes. So basically in the early so if you look if we're discussing here, what are one of the contributions of the ideas of the Enlightenment? And remember that when I was looking at that book, I talk about narratives of the Enlightenment in the plural, because there are obviously different types. And there's the French Enlightenment, there's the British, there are different aspects of it, and it's a very big sort of European movement. And sometimes you can't ascribe, by the way, national characteristics, but it's quite interesting to see how different strands develop in different areas. And of course, the difference is really that concepts of rights, I mean, the idea that a citizen, you have a right, is a very, very 18th century Enlightenment idea. I mean, prior to that, you don't have the concept of rights. So it's not something that is as established as you get then. Yes, there are sort of monarchs in the past who talk about almost like a sort of a social contract of sorts. I will do this, you will do that, so on and so forth. We exchange it. But the notion that as you get, I think expressed most obviously in the American Declaration of Independence, that we are endowed with inalienable rights. This is something that's really a product of 18th century political thought.